Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Jessica. Welcome to my home in Chicago. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Jessica Blue. I'm an interior designer. Welcome to my slice of heaven in Chicago. My husband and I were renting for a very long time in another neighborhood in Chicago, and we were on the search for something that sort of married location but also charm and a lot of vintage details. So we went on this condominium hunt and we found this, rather small condo, but perfect in size for what we needed. And we completely fell in love with all of the architectural details, the arched openings, just all of these really old school details. It's been about 7 years now that we've been living in this home, and we've been sort of updating it as time progresses and sort of as our aesthetics and things change to sort of fit our needs. I was looking for a space that felt near and dear to who I am and my personality. I love to mix old and new things, and as an interior designer, I definitely push that for my clients. I love a sustainable moment, so when it came to the home, I really loved this sort of mold of, like I said, these architectural details, but also, layering in some really cool furniture and things that felt a little bit more modern and collected. I would say the best compliment that someone can say about my home is maybe just wow. I think, whether that's good or bad, because, some people might not like so much color, but the fact that I've, evoked some sort of reaction, emotion, and wow, I think is just a general word that sort of embodies, everything, whether it's good or bad. As long as I got a reaction, I think I did my job. Welcome to the entry space of my home. This is a very small space since it is combined with the larger part, which is a dining room, which we'll step into in a little bit. But the entry space really serves as a place where you can just sort of take off your hat, your coat, your shopping bags, throw them on the rack here, and I've created this little nook that serves as a nice place to sit down and, whether it's putting on your shoes before you have to head out, or if you want to just sit here and chill and read a book and cozy up with a little throw. So I love this corner so much, specifically the fact that, again, I am a huge art collector, and that does not necessarily mean that it's, high budget art. I love to look through vintage antique stores, trash, whatever, and repurpose art. I have this fantastic portrait of my grandmother, and this is actually a duplicate portrait. The original is hanging in a museum in Europe, and so I created this focal point to sort of really shine a light on my grandmother. Since I love an eclectic aesthetic, I'm pairing something like my grandmother's portrait, which does have a bit of a traditional vibe with the framing, with this Art Deco mirror that I found, I think, at a thrift store somewhere locally. It's probably chipped, but that's the beauty of finding things. I'm okay with that. There's no such thing as perfection when it comes to decor. So I also loved sort of the contrast with, a piece of art like this and something a little bit funkier, something a little bit more abstract. This area does serve as more of a portrait room. I love portraits for whatever reason. And so, again, going into my heritage, Polish, and then, featuring my Black heritage, by featuring this beautiful portrait by a Black artist out in Detroit. So I really love everything coming together for full circle. And then stepping into this curio cabinet here, this really houses all of my prized possessions and, a lot of really great books, a lot of portraits of my family. I lost my dad last year, so I've got a beautiful picture of him. My friends that I love to travel with and spend time with. So, if I'm sitting down in this chair, I can grab a book or I can look through some photo albums and just really, hang out here with a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and just, relax. So this is a really safe space for me because, again, this reminds me of my dad, and all of my beautiful heritage and family moments. As I mentioned, I lost my dad last year, and he was a huge part of my life. And so, he was this really vibrant person with this huge, just like glowing personality. And so, I took it upon myself to find a vintage urn for his cremated remains. And so, I went to a local vintage shop and I found this beautiful, like chinoiserie styled urn. I found another one for my sister. And so we both have a part of our dad that we can, be with. And so no surface is untouched. I basically, have covered the entire curio cabinet with just all these things that really have special meaning to me. So, the urn with my dad, and then I'm a cat person, and so I had a cat for about 18 years, so she's also up there with us. And, I got a special candle from my in-laws from Europe. So everything sort of is together and holds a lot of meaning and just feels really special in this corner of the home. So this rug, which is all wool, by the way, because I do have a cat and, we're taking off our shoes in this space, is just a really sturdy, very durable rug. And I love that it is sort of this take on, animal print, which is definitely a huge part of my personality. And, it is this sort of faux tiger rug that I found, I think, through one of my favorite boho designers, Justina Blakeney. So I love how this rug really ties in both of the rooms and sort of creates this unity between both of the spaces that is just so good for entertaining and having people over. Another huge part of my sort of coming up is postmodern design. And so whenever I'm sort of out shopping for antique furniture, I think I always just love anything that's sort of oddly shaped and reminds me of the 90s. I'm such a 90s kid. I grew up watching Rugrats and stuff. So it's like, anything that sort of reminds me of the 90s, like this postmodern console here, is really cool. And I think the more abstract shapes you have, the more, things sort of feel forgiving. So you can definitely play with angles and things don't just have to feel so, rectilinear and balanced all the time. Things can sort of be wabi-sabi. So I really love this sort of, nod to the 90s that I sort of mixed in with some more traditional things like, a sitting chair and then my grandmother's portrait, for example. If you're looking to incorporate some more color into your home, into your design, you can book a consultation on Tald. They can help you match with designers all over the country. You can work remotely on your project, and it's super easy. Just go onto tald.com and you can find a designer to work with. So my style is definitely something that I would call an eclectic collector. I love color, and so the first layer upon moving into this home was paint. And we designated which rooms we wanted, paint to really flourish. And so with our layering in of paint, we then sort of decided, how are we going to function in the spaces and how can we build upon that? I love sort of a hunt, and so I'd rather take time to find the perfect piece rather than buy everything off of a website. And so that's what I love doing. I love going to antique shops over the weekend and just finding like the perfect pieces to sort of all fit into this puzzle. And again, like I love a little bit of history, so anytime that I can find something that I can restore and bring back to its glory, I'm all for that. So eclectic all the way. Stepping into the dining area, here I have this table that seats 6. Depending on, if we have more family or friends over, we can definitely expand that. But What I love about this dining area are these chairs that I found, again, another postmodern find, these very cool geometric chairs. And I had them reupholstered in a fabric that's sort of reminiscent of, sort of like an African cloth. So again, a mix of different styles, but I really love how that came together. Under this tablecloth, we have, again, one of my other favorite materials, which is like a burl wood. I love the warmth of that wood and the texture. So combining a lot of textures and things. We had this wall fully draped just for some privacy and warmth if anybody ever, wants to insulate or for acoustical properties. I think draping a full wall is definitely a really good move to make. And other than that, in this dining room, the first thing that we purchased when we moved into the house was this chandelier, this mid-century modern chandelier for $100 that I found on Facebook Marketplace. That was probably one of my first purchases. And so we hung that up and cleaned it up and switched out the bulbs and gave it some new life. So definitely a good find. Found these cool checkered placemats. Feel neutral, but also add some contrast and interest. I love florals. I love flowers, especially tulips. So when they're in season, I definitely make sure I grab a bunch. And other than that, decor, I think, I love these little stacking blocks that I found locally through a great decor store here, Jason Home. My husband and I are huge music fans. I mean, I grew up listening to everything, every genre, my husband as well. And so when my dad passed and prior to that, I inherited a lot of his vinyl records. And so we have a few record players. This one sort of stays out for day to day. But I've got all of these really cool records from my dad and then some thrifted records that we found as well through local record shops here in Chicago. And so, I've got everything in here from, jazz, blues, metal, R&B, hip hop. And so we really love listening to music. This is great to have when you're having like a little dinner party. It really sets the mood and the tone. And then, of course, the natural transition to entertaining is a beverage. And so, we created this bar space. It sort of started growing during the pandemic when, it was just me and my husband at home trying to tinker with recipes and cocktails. And so we've sort of narrowed it down. My husband's a huge whiskey person, so we've got a lot of those special edition things here. But this is our bar area. I'm a huge plant person, so I've got, some plants here that I also love to display. And like I said, like candles, always a nice touch. Another huge purchase for us when we moved in was actually finding a little bar cabinet. And I love Megmade. This is a local retailer here in Chicago. And I think she started out by just finding these vintage, mid-century modern and pre-war sort of case goods. And she would repurpose them and repaint them. And she grew to, this mega retailer now. I think she's got 2 locations. And so this is my favorite piece because we got to pick out what color we wanted, and we basically painted it this beautiful, like vibrant coral color. And so, this is our little cabinet here that houses a lot of our dining ware, our bar area, this little lamp, and, I like to curate these little vignettes here. So this is a really special place, not only because of that, but, again, I have this gallery wall displayed, which features a lot of portraits. These are all, I would say, all but 2 are thrifted. They're all probably things that were discarded that I took and had them reframed with a local framer. I think that really helps elevate art that is budget. And other than that, I had this funky Whitney portrait commissioned, Whitney Houston. Again, I'm a huge music fan. And then this portrait here that we picked up in our favorite place, which is Merida in the Yucatan in Mexico. So other than that, art, huge. I love displaying it. I love conversation starters. I think, displaying all your favorite art throughout the home is just a great way to, constantly just sort of have your eye travel and create and spark interest. This room was the first room that I think we painted when we moved in, and I immediately knew that I wanted a very saturated, green color. And I don't know if it's because I initially wanted a green kitchen, or green just makes me feel really good, but we landed on this awesome color from Sherwin-Williams. It's called Arugula. And I wanted it also to sort of feel a little bit more elevated, so we painted it in a semi-gloss finish. So it adds a little bit of formality to the space. I thought dining room, this is where the guests are. Why not take it up a notch? So I have not gotten sick of this color. I'm sure some other people have, but I have not. And yeah, this color just sort of signifies this sort of regal room to me. And so I love it. Sherwin-Williams Arugula, I love it. When we painted the walls this very saturated green, we left all the trim work, which is original to the home. We left it white. Well, we painted it a Benjamin Moore color, I think, called Mountain Peak White. And so, we debated whether we should, do something, especially with the chair rail and stuff. But no, we left everything sort of original and just refreshed the color in this sort of off-white color that sort of complements and helps this green color on the walls really pop. The other corner in this dining room is a bookshelf. I think I moved into this home, or my husband and I moved into this home with more books than we actually knew we had. And so we had a hard time sort of fitting everything everywhere. So I was like, well, why not display the bigger books, but then our smaller books, that we've read or that we want to read, we sort of have on this stacked bookshelf here that fits perfectly in this little space. So I love that it's just its own compact little space. And again, it's just kitty corner. If I want to get up and get a book to read, I can get up from my chair, or if I'm at the dining table and look through my collection of books. And so moving on to this adjacent wall here, I, again, love postmodern furniture, so I found this waterfall console, again, with its imperfections and its chips and stuff, but I love that it's this sort of high gloss. And, I use this area for a small storage opportunity. We've got this ottoman that we can sort of hide shoes and things in, sit down if needed, if you need to put your shoes on, but also, again, displaying all of my favorite coffee table books that I've received as gifts or that I've collected on my own. A lot of them are definitely interior design books, so I really love to utilize my interior design books for inspiration when I'm working on a project. So I love sort of, browsing through these, but I also love having them displayed. And then I've got some other found objects like this bust, again, with a little chip, but I love him. I think he's perfectly imperfect. Another postmodern piece, which is this cool clock. It's not even set to the right time, but I don't care. I love to hear the ticking of it. And then our clamshell that we use to sort of house all of our keys. So when we walk in, we toss our keys and sunglasses into that bowl. And again, another nice multifunctional space. The artwork on this wall, I think, was either some discarded art from a friend. I figured I'd take it. I don't think I really had any special connection to it. But once I brought it into this space and saw how nicely it worked with my green walls, and again, all these beautiful primary colors and this warmth, I just thought this is the perfect piece to go here. So I think it, happened organically, and I love this abstract sort of painted piece of art here. Growing up, and especially with the last name Blue, having people always ask, if that's a real name, a fake name, it's meant to be for the stage. I think I was always predestined to sort of have a creative bone. And so I actually started out after high school and college, and simultaneously with some other professions. I was a wedding singer for 12 years. And so that really helped my, creative light shine. but due to some health reasons, I had to sort of quit that and pivot. And, you know, it was a good point in time to talk to my husband and say, hey, like, what can I do, and what can we do together to potentially work together? And I thought to myself, you know, I love fashion, I love, you know, being creative, and I always loved sort of redecorating and repurposing my room as a kid and bedazzling, you know, lampshades and things. So I thought, why not go back to school for something that I can really get into and just soak up all the education and all the wonderful resources that Chicago has to offer. So I went back to school for interior design. I completed the program, I interned, and I worked for some really fabulous firms here in Chicago that gave me so much experience. And it's been about 10 years that I've been in this field, and I could not see myself doing anything else. I love it, I think about it day and night, and I just love ultimately helping people create sanctuaries and spaces that, you know, that they love. Coming off of the dining space, we step into this vestibule that really just holds our coat closet. And I found this the best opportunity to sort of utilize my DIY skills, which was taking this peel and stick wallpaper that I found years ago on Etsy. I didn't have enough to cover an entire wall or an entire vestibule. So what I ended up doing was cutting out these blobs and sort of creating this abstracted sort of, you know, wallpaper, if you can say. So this is just a little vestibule. It houses a mirror, so when I'm getting dressed, I sort of step into this space, and it's a fun, you know, DIY moment. I have a piece of art that I found in Paris last year, and so I had that framed, and I sort of love looking at it when I'm getting dressed. And as we step out of the vestibule, we walk into now my office space, which is combined with a living room. And starting with this, you know, really fun vintage IKEA chair that I found, again, another Facebook Marketplace find. I don't know if this is the original color or if the owner before me painted it this color, but I loved it. And paired it with, you know, some great art that I found. I can't really remember when, but again, some abstract art and, you know, fun pillows. I love a throw pillow. I'm a designer, so, you know, that's probably 10% of my job, so why not be happy with my pillows at home? The second room that we painted in the home is this one, and we chose a neutral color because I do have to, let my husband sometimes also make some decisions. So with this space being so neutral, you know, and feeling maybe a little bit more masculine, I definitely made sure that, you know, we bring some feminine energy in here. And so I found these beautiful nude portraits in France, in Paris last year when I went for a big design conference. And that was probably one of the biggest highlights of my trip, was going to these antique markets and sifting through things. And so I brought back these beautiful pieces of art, and I had them framed here. And I love that as a reminder as I'm sitting at my desk, you know, like, you know, I got to go on this awesome design conference and do this as a you know, an activity when I was in Paris. So that's something that I really, you know, love to feature when I'm sitting at my desk. I would say another big project that we took on when moving into this space was really like talking about lighting. Like, we really had to focus on how we wanted the light to function for us. And so this originally, I think, is the primary bedroom. That's how they had it listed in the real estate listing. And so again, it was just like your typical half moon sconce, something that you'd find at a Home Depot, Lowe's. And so I thought, how can we create a really good decor moment? How can we help bring some depth to the space and some interest and layer in some really good texture? And so I had my husband frame out the sconce locations here. We painted the framing the same color as the wall, and then we had some leftover vinyl wall covering from Maya Romanoff that was perfect. So we created these like inset details here, and then we switched out the sconces for these really cool perforated sconces from Anthropology. And so at night, the space is gorgeous because it's dark in here, and then you really see all this light shine through these sort of, I don't know, celestial looking sconces. And so it really creates a really nice effect, especially off of this beautiful metallic bronze wall covering that has a lot of texture. We, still wanted the space to feel like a true living room. And so we went ahead and found this awesome sleeper sofa that we had upholstered in this beautiful sort of Merlot color. And, this room is also multifunctional in that it can serve as a guest bedroom as well. So we had in-laws over last summer, and, basically this flips out into a king bed. And, it's easy as just moving these ottomans over, and you've got pretty much a bedroom space. I love that it's in a bay window. I love this bay window particularly because in the summer we've got the vines growing up and blooming, so this entire wall behind us would be green. And I also love plants, and so I thought, I want to bring some of that organic nature from the outside in. And so I've got, plants in either corner that, are sort of doing well in this space. And so it really is like a nice little sanctuary, especially if I'm working and I need a break. I can just sit on the sofa, sit on the ottoman, and sort of just like hang out and, relax for a little bit. Most importantly, I'm standing on this rug that was custom designed by me. I took part in a very cool contest for a greater cause called Carpets for a Cause with one of my local rug vendors, Oscar's Berrien. And so I had the opportunity of creating a rug that, was up for auction, and it's a great cause. So that was a fun thing. And my husband ended up bidding on it. So now it's in our home. But I love that because I can tell a story about, sort of my inspiration behind the design. And it's something unique to me. It's something that I, can't find at a store. And so I really love how everything sort of came together here. The other side of this combo living office is definitely more of an office space. And so this is, really storage focused. And I definitely have some tricks here when it comes to sort of concealing all of this. I created a very cool storage opportunity by, housing all of my samples and things behind this skirt. And so this skirt also has a fun story because I took part in a show house a few years back, and this skirt was custom made for a bathroom that I was doing for the show house. And so once the house was sold and we sort of had to take down all of our things, I made sure to repurpose this. And so now it acts as this really cool sort of concealed opportunity for some of my stuff that I don't want visible on the day-to-day. And so on top, nothing too special, just all of my supplies and things. But this is a nice work area. Anytime that I have to sort of lay out and work on drawings, trace over drawings, or, look at all my samples and sort of lay everything out, it's a nice space to do so. And again, I've got one of my favorite art pieces, which is this Robert Longo print. I won it in an auction. I've always been fascinated by his Men in the Cities series. I love the tension between, corporate life and just wanting to let loose. And so I always wanted to own one of those prints. And so I do. And it's a nice reminder of my old corporate days, and the fact that I think everyone once in a while just wants to sort of let their hair down. As an interior designer, I love decorating my own home. It's something that I will carve out time on a Sunday with a cup of coffee and think about, how can I reimagine this space. I think as an interior designer, you're always thinking about, how can I create a better way to function or live in this space? Like, how can I update this so that it really reflects my needs? And so I absolutely love designing my own home, 100%. When people, friends, guests, strangers walk into my home, I want them to feel warmth. I want them to feel welcomed. I want them to feel a burst of energy with all the color popping through, and I want their eyes to really travel. I want them to feel inspired and surprised. Okay, so here we are in the bathroom. Very small space, but a very impactful design approach here. And I say that because this was a very builder's grade sort of styled bathroom. Large format tile on the floor, everything was beige. And so I thought, how can we sort of liven this space up? And so I love contrast. We ended up doing this really fun hex on the floor that's black, but then we grouted it white. And then in contrast to that, we did a fun subway tile stacked in white, but then grouted it in black. And so we've got this sort of inverted design here, definitely within vintage vibes with sort of the hex, sort of mid-century modern feeling. But, another cool thing to sort of give this space the illusion that it's bigger is we just went ahead and got a large format mirror that we had cut to sort of give some height to the space. And so, I'm really proud of this space and how it came together. I love getting ready here. It's really one of my favorite spaces in the home. The favorite part in my home, I would have to say, is my bedroom. It is a complete sanctuary. It is so comforting after a long day, or if it's a weekend and it's snowing outside in Chicago, or whether it's raining, and I just want to completely zonk out and just chill, and whether it's reading a book or watching TV, I love my bedroom so much. I invest in bedding because I just want to feel so comfortable and cozy. So my bedroom is my ultimate favorite space in my home. Okay, welcome to my favorite room in the house, which is my sanctuary space, the primary bedroom. I love this room primarily because I love my bed. And so I love that this is a king bed. I love that there's enough space for my husband and I. He's 6'3", so this is just perfect in terms of, just having a big enough bed and comfort. I love introducing, again, texture and color and pattern. And so, I love layering bedding especially. And so we've sort of got, lots of pillows, but most importantly, this fun bedspread that I just found in Mexico. I was just there earlier this year. And so I found this amazing bedspread that just sort of had all the colors that make me happy. And so, perfect now, especially for the winter time. I sort of love how all the colors in here are married with this sort of very neutral gray on the wall, or on the walls, I should say. This is Pewter by Benjamin Moore, and honestly, on the paint can, it looks gray, but sort of in this space, it sort of takes on this blue hue, and I really thought that was a nice dreamy color for a space like a primary bedroom. And so that was my anchor point for this room, was really sort of working off of this neutral, dreamy color. And so, we layered in some things like this metal bed frame that is actually from IKEA, of all places, but it's been a solid purchase and it's been with us forever. And, layered in some other really great textures with this wood that also has sort of this, almost like a blue tone to it. And, I love sort of the combination of this beautiful wood tone and these leather handles here. The other thing in the bedroom that I really love is this rug that I think I actually thrifted. It's an Anthropologie rug, but it's a nice high pile, sort of fluffy rug. So underfoot, it feels great. if I'm walking around here. It's not a lot of space, but, I think we've designed it so that it makes sense. There's enough flow. Everything is sort of perfect in its spot. We lack storage in this house, so I had to bring in some pieces like this credenza here. And so, I have obviously an obsession with purses and shoes and things, and my closet is not big enough to hold all of that. So this is a nice, tidy way to sort of keep everything nice and neat, but, sort of has everything on display as well. I just always have to be mindful of, putting things back in its space. My other fun moment is I love a mushroom lamp, and so our bedside tables that are like old, I think Nate Berkus for Target, like years ago, this like antiqued mirror bedside table. And so I paired it with these sort of space age mushroom lamps. And I love these lamps so much. I think they add a nice, fun, aesthetic to the room. A very cool piece in this room, something very special to me. I think a few years ago for my birthday, I gifted myself this really fun abstract piece of art from a great vintage dealer here in Chicago, Dial M for Modern. A lot of people locally are very familiar with that shop. And so I fell in love with it. I thought the colors were just a beautiful, touch to these sort of neutral pewter walls. And so I always make sure to tie in my bedding to sort of some of these like underlying colors in this artwork. Another very fun piece of art is this printed stippling that a friend actually created, an old neighbor from my childhood. So this is actually me and my babysitter. I don't think she's with us anymore, but her name was, I called her my babcia Yaja, and she was basically my caretaker when my parents were working. And so our neighbor basically took a picture of us when we were outside in the summer, sort of hanging out on this lawn chair, and then he created, this beautiful artwork that sort of resembles like a watercolor. And so this is something that has a lot of meaning to me, and I have it in my bedroom to sort of remind me of my childhood and these lazy summer Chicago days. Something that is important to me are, window treatments in general, I think, are very important. And, it's probably the first thing that I mention to clients when working with them. It's really nice to dress the windows. And so, this being a primary bedroom, being a space where we sleep most of the time, I really wanted to make sure that, if we need anything blackout, like we've got this shade that sort of comes down and creates that sort of blackout, that effect for us. But then I layered in, some linen drapes, in case I want some light filtration. But then we also have these stationary decorative panels to sort of, again, create a little bit more decoration in the room. And so this is a beautiful fabric from Dadar. And this, I think, once upon a time was an actual bedspread. And so then I had it repurposed into my stationary panels. And now we're stepping into the kitchen. This space, as mentioned previously, was, definitely a DIY moment. My husband painted the cabinets. If you can imagine, they were your typical sort of oaky finish. And so we painted them this gray from Benjamin Moore, something nice and neutral, something that I could sort of bounce some textiles and things off of. The space isn't the most interesting, but I do sort of appreciate that the cabinets now took on a whole different sort of more, tone and have a little bit more depth. We also switched out the hardware for something a little bit more modern. And so, yeah, I do love this space. We love to cook. We found this butcher block through a designer friend here in Chicago. She was getting rid of it, so I was like, of course I want it. It creates, a little bit of more surface space. If my husband's, doing something over here, I can work over here and vice versa. We do love to cook, so we've got all of our gadgets and things sort of neatly tucked away. And, I did display some art here and there. I've got like a little printed poppy that I found in Poland. And then also in combination with this area, which sort of hides the laundry unit, this is actually a wing, a wallpaper wing that was tossed, ready to go into the dumpster at the Merchandise Mart, which is sort of the designer hub here. I work out of that space a lot sometimes. And so I was walking the corridors and saw that one of the showrooms was tossing all of their wallpaper wings. And so I thought, what a great opportunity to cover a door or something. So I basically dragged it home and, applied it to the door here. So it's this very pretty, just, artistic moment in the kitchen, which is a little bit unexpected, sort of over the cat feeding station. But I sort of like that juxtaposition of something, as beautiful as, this high-end wallpaper that now just sort of sits within my door frames. A sort of funny moment in the space is that, the seller or whoever the builder was, when they were trying to sort of revamp the space for a sell, they replaced all the appliances with matching things, but they never replaced the fridge. And I was sort of okay with that. So I have a white fridge. Any Housewives of Atlanta fans will know that Nene would not be too happy with this. But I took it as an opportunity to just display all of my fun pictures and magnets from traveling all over the world. And so, I love to take funny pictures and things at bars and things throughout the city and displaying it. So, whenever we reach for the fridge door, we always sort of look at this and think about, happy moments and stuff. So I'm okay with sort of the mishmash of appliances and use the white fridge as an opportunity to display just some more fun memorabilia. I believe that a home really shows its soul or creates the soulful feeling with art that is thoughtfully collected and displayed throughout the home. Obviously, any personal memorabilia, and whether that's something you've inherited or collected, whether it be a vase or a picture that you framed. I believe scents, anything from incense to candles and things that sort of make you feel good. I think that creates a beautiful, soulful feeling. And I'm a huge music person, so I always have, something on a Sonos speaker or, somewhere in the background. I just feel like all of those things combined create a lot of depth and just happy vibes. The word home to me means a safe space. It means, this is a space where you can sort of let your shoulders drop and all of your worries and anxieties sort of, melt away. So that is what home means to me. A home should be a safe space, a sanctuary, and you should just feel, comfortable and cozy enough to just sort of relax. Homeworthy, it was great having you over. I hope you enjoyed touring my spaces. I hope you had fun. I do have to get back to work, so I'm going to say farewell. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more. To book a virtual consultation with Jessica Blue on TALD, scan the QR code on your screen or click on the link in the description box below.